10 a.m. It's February 24th, 2015. And first ask for a motion to adopt the agenda, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster. Seconded by Councillor Bart. All in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. We have some minutes from the regular council meeting held February 10th.
Move adoption.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster. Seconded by Councillor Blanchette. All in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. No business arising from the minutes. I have no announcements today. And so we'll go right into our delegations. And we have Ricardo from Leadership Vancouver Island. Thank you very much, Ricardo, for coming today to give us an update on the program and tell us about all the accomplishments that you've been making.
Oh, right, making, yes. Making.
So you have up to 15 minutes to make your presentation, and at that time then the council can ask questions and
sure.
From there. Thank you.
That down.
I'll give you a, if you approach 15 minutes, I'll give you a 2-minute warning.
Yeah, just put your hand up, no worries. Just gonna turn that off. There we go. Okay. Perfect. All right. So I wanted to come in to share a little bit about. Is it possible to kill these lights? Just so you get the full effect.
Yeah. There you go.
There we go. So just so I really wanted to come in to thank the council for your support of the Leadership Vancouver Island program and bringing it here to the coast. This program's been running. This is its 10th year. Currently running on the east coast of Vancouver Island. It was based on Leadership BC initiative back 12 years ago, and we have been working to bring the program here since that time over the last 5 years, and last year was our first year, our inaugural year in 2013. Lots of people are already aware of the program that are on council, which was great because we were able to get the support 2 years in a row, $10,000 to make that happen. And with that support, we were able to put 4 participants in both years that weren't able to find the funding from either their employer or their current work arrangement. And it was great that we could make the program an equal access type of program. That was the biggest thing that we wanted to make sure of, that anyone who wanted to take on more of a leadership role in our communities, that we were able to support them to do it. And through council and through your support, we were able to. So today, what I'd like to share is just a little bit of how things went over the 2013-2014 year, as well as some of the challenges that we faced, continue to face in some ways, and also the successes that we had. So I'll make sure to jump right into it. So the way the program runs, it's a 10-month program where we take students there's a 2-day retreat at the beginning, and then there are 8 leadership days from October to May, and then we have a graduation in June. So one thing I want to write down. So the opening retreat, really, we had a lot of flexibility in how we ran the program out here this year, and we know that there have been challenges trying to find one specific location. But the idea with this program was to take them to all of the communities that we could possibly reach within a reasonable amount of time. Not so much Heshquit, because it would take half the day to get up there and half the day to get back. But we were able to make it out to a house for our opening retreat 2 years in a row now. So at the bottom of the location, I also have what we actually talk about during that time. So this was a 2-day retreat in a house where we took the students for the first time. We actually have one of the students in the audience, Samantha Hackett from Long Beach Lodge. She was a participant last year, so you'll see her in some of the pictures as well. But it was more about the experience and taking them out of that comfort zone and exposing them to a new environment. A lot of our students hadn't been to a house before. We held our class in the brand new, well back then, well I guess in the new community, or in the new school up there, Metastasis. And we had Patrick Ross. He was one of the spearheads from the East Coast. He was the past president of VIU that's been a rock throughout this program and bringing it out to our coast. So he was able to join us on our first retreat day. As another component to this program, we have the flexibility and the ability really out here on the coast to take people outside. So we really take advantage of that. We were walking over to Walk the Wild Side Trail as we moved out there, and we were able to have our classes on the beach, really tying in that outdoor learning component. With my military background, 15 years in the military now, I know how much more we can learn and how much faster we can peel back layers when we're out there. And you know, there's all the research nowadays that speaks to outdoor learning and adventure leadership, if you want to call it that. But even when you're doing leadership development, pushing it outdoors, really you're able to stretch the learning of the participants to a greater degree. Hey, there's Sam right there. There you go. All right. So just some of the pictures of the area itself. We started off the class last year. There were 18 participants on the program. And as I come to some of the challenges that we face, that number decreased by 2 throughout the training year. So our first leadership day was down in Ucluelet. So we then moved down to the south, and we talked about laying the groundwork for leading. So we started to talk about what it really means to be a leader in that environment. And they also found out what their teams were going to be that day. We always include the component of bringing in an elder for blessings and the acknowledgement of the land that we're on. And we've had some great support. There's Barb there as our elder for the first leadership day when we brought everyone together. On that first leadership day, that's when they found out who their teams would be, and they started to go into some of the storming and the forming that needs to happen as a part of their team through some of the activities and exercises that we ran for them. So they really started to get that grasp on their team itself. As we moved into, well, we were able to push them out into the outside again that afternoon and down in Yuki along the Wild Pacific Trail there. So we also have as a component of this program coaching. We've got international ICF coaches, International Coach Federation. They're certified coaches. That's Dr. Liz Zed, who lives in the area here. We also had 2 coaches from Victoria who I did my coaching program with at Royal Roads. So coaching is a fundamental part of the program that helps the emerging leader to really pull a little bit more about their own development throughout the program from it. Leadership Day 2, we took them over to a Pitsit. We were over at the MCC over there, first time for a lot of our students to be able to make it over to a Pitsit and see the cows. And there are 2 new calves out there now. I don't know if you know that, but they're super cute. It was great to be able to go into the environment and be able to walk the community and get a real understanding of some of those challenges that they face. It is a different world sometimes, and a great reframe for a lot of our students and for myself as we transition through and learned about the challenges that are faced by each community. This was where they started to work on their applied community project. So throughout the program, we want them to apply that learning. So we made sure that they do have a project that they can actually work towards. They decide on the project. They come up with the proposal for the project. They go through the Gantt chart. They go through the budgetary restrictions, the grant writing process, the media releases. And throughout the year, that's one of the components to make this learning experiential and for them to be able to really draw more from their learning. Obviously, adult learning, we're always going to play games because that's how we keep everyone awake, besides the caffeine. And it was the start of the LBI journey that year. Quisitus was where we went in December. And this is where we really, the layers got torn back around some of the real West Coast issues that we face that the East Coast doesn't. That issue around diversity. And we were lucky to have Chuck McCarthy and Iris Frank come out to present with us that day there in Quisitus and to really have some open dialogue. That was the week after the information about the Port Alberni School had been released. So it was still very fresh, and it created a great place for that dialogue to happen and for us to understand how we can start to bridge these communities. Came over to the TBG on Leadership Day 4 in January, and it was Leadership to Inspire and Engage. We had Josie actually present as one of our community speakers that day, and we had Dr. Patrick Ross come out to be our facilitator when we were at the Botanical Gardens there. This year, we hosted it again at the Botanical Gardens, and one of our students from last year, she is a facilitator and a speaker, so Candace was able to come out to speak to the Happiness Project and some of those aspects of really what does that mean and what does that look like, and be able to apply it to our own lives currently. It was just a nice shot from, you see this all the time, Josie, but we don't, maybe. Our day 5, we were at Wyatt Point Lodge. We actually just finished this leadership day last week at Wyatt Point Lodge number 9 once again. Connecting through communication, where we started to talk about what media releases look like and some of those communication challenges that happen, whether it be generationally, whether it be by race, by sex. So starting to get an understanding of really what that means to us. So there's the lodge on the inside. If you haven't been into Lodge number 9, it is gorgeous, and there are all kinds of beautiful, beautiful, I would say, artwork around the entire lodge. Leadership Day 6, that's when we took them down to Makoa, and again, for a lot of students, it was the first time to be down there. This was a week after they had just gotten the authorization to drink their drinking water, and it was profound to think that there are still communities that aren't able to drink that drinking water. So while we were down there, we talked about the transformational role of leadership. We had Dr. Laura Laux from CBT and also Royal Roads come down to speak with us. Again, outdoor learning. They set up a tent for us, and we were literally in a plastic tent making it all come together. We also had Dennis Hatu come down to do a traditional drum for us. We could see how cold it was because there's the propane tank in the background with the heating elements on, because it's the West Coast and we need to adapt around that. We were able to have a community walk as well, where we were able to see some of the challenges that, that this specific community faces in regards to building places just to bring their people back to. That's the new campground. And Jackie came down to also speak to us about those media release portions of things, and being able to lean forward on that, they were able to launch some of those media advisories. As we got closer to the end of the year, we were at Long Beach Lodge for Leadership and Living Well. Patrick Ross and Dr. Laux came out to share with us some of the ideas around finding balance and being able to identify those things in our lives that may be drawing more energy than they should be, and how do we bring those back into balance. In the afternoon, we were able to push it out to the to Long Beach, or sorry, to Cox Bay, and it was wonderful to see all the surfers staring at us, wondering how they could join the class. But it's quite a unique environment when you're able to push them outside. We were able to draw in the sand our own personal plans of finding balance and what is impacting, what force factors in our life that are impacting that balance itself. On the West Coast, we actually did a closing retreat. As opposed to a one-day way to wrap up, last year we were able to run a retreat. And we took them out to Hookman for an overnight Leadership as a Journey retreat. Leadership as a Journey was the topic, so we made it into a journey. As they traveled out there by canoe, we were able to ask them those questions about reflection for the last 9 months of the program, and how do we lean forward? How do we continue to build? It was extremely valuable to have Joe. Joe Martin came out with us too and was able to share some of those stories of their leaders and what their leaders need in the future. And we were able to set up a classroom in one of the most beautiful environments I could possibly think of. There's Joe without the shirt on. That's not actually a student. I'm a little restrictive. Yeah, thanks. So as we wrapped up the day, as we paddled back that day, we wanted to make sure that that there was that reflection time. We sang as we came back because the teams had grown so much together over that time. There was the final class, the last picture. Like I said, we were 2 down at the end of the class because of some of the challenges that we faced. It was an amazing year, but the challenges that we ran into was the remoteness, for one thing. It's been very difficult to maintain someone from a Howsett, for example, and also from Makoa was a challenge last year. We had 2 from Makoa last year, and only 1 of the 2 were able to finish the program. Because of the travel to meet in the teams as frequently as they did, sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly. That was definitely a challenge. The other one was the student employer support side of things. And without grants and without the opportunity from you, it wouldn't have happened for a lot of the students. Building on the successes, we've had students from the program start master's degrees. We've had 2 masters, continuing on with master's degrees. We've had 1 go to law school, 1 facilitator looking at possibly taking a doctorate. And through this program and what I've realized in my time out here now on the coast, I also started my doctorate a year ago at Royal Roads, looking at leadership development in rural and remote communities. So it is the biggest surprise from the program, and one of the best outcomes that we could possibly have not even imagined was the connections. The connections at the emerging leader level, where they're not afraid to pick up that phone anymore and call. Toquat Nation is calling a Howsit and asking questions. And at the board level as well. Our board was able to get together at the leadership of these communities and start to have this dialogue, some of that important dialogue that needs to happen to move us all forward. The last thing I want to finish with is we want to run, or we're planning to run a sponsorship recognition event. And I'll be inviting all of you out once we pin down the date for Quisitus. Right now, tentatively, it's going to be April 30th at Quisitus from 5 until 7. So that's just something we want to throw together to bring out our sponsors and to bring out the students themselves so they can thank you in person. So please mark your calendar for that date, and more to follow on that once we confirm with Tyson that they're up and running and open. So thank you. Thanks for the time to be able to thank you for making this program happen. Really, really, it wouldn't have if it wasn't for the district to support us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I'll open it up to council in case there's any questions or comments. Councillor Burke, were you about to?
I was about to wait to see if anybody else came forward.
Councillor Thick?
I just think it's fantastic, and thank you, Ricardo, for just taking it on, because I know that there's a monetary reward for doing this, but there's a passion behind there that is just so refreshing to see. And I'm just, it really exemplifies what we're trying to do with the higher learning. It's the perfect analogy. It's like the test pilot course, and it also solidifies what we found in the research, which is outdoor experiential place-based learning is where it's at, and we are the perfect venue, and you've just demonstrated that. So I just really thank you for bringing that good news report to us. And I've asked the students who took part in that program, and I've heard nothing but good and great things. So thank you for doing it. And I for one I really want to see not only this continue, but that model be used for further course development on our coast and between communities, because I think it's, there's no greater reward than to hear that Toquat's talking to a Howsit, or that we're talking to Yuthuaplot, and back and forth. This is really, really fabulous. Thank you.
We were able to show that the space doesn't need to be a restriction for us to start developing curriculum, to start developing programs that we can, because we have spaces we can create or we can take them to. It's beautiful, right? So yeah, just takes a little bit of risk, and a really good facilitator that can think on their feet in the rain, and how do we set up something in the rain.
Thank you.
So thanks. Please, Dorothy.
We have the lights, please. Just
I know it gets dark, I can't see me, I only see his teeth. Put that in the agenda. Sorry.
I'm going to ask
Genuine
a tough
Ricardo.
question. I'm not
Please.
going to hide behind darkness. So I guess what I didn't hear was a request for the funding, so I don't know if that's something we would be anticipating in the future, but there is a bit of a kind of a sense of investment from the municipality. I mean, we make a choice around putting 10, 20,000 into a program like that. It's not in the sort of specific education realm, which has its own kind of pockets and tax gathering and all the rest of it. This is a grant, and there's a bit in my mind about return on investment as part of the community. And I think there were projects that were undertaken, but I'm also wondering if, for Leadership Vancouver Island, if there is going to be further asks, if there's a way of incorporating some kind of direct benefit back to
Great question.
community, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of need.
So there's been a couple things that we've talked about this year. One of them, for anyone who is able to get a grant, right, through the application process, that they volunteer time back to, I don't know if you heard this at the, well, I don't know if it came up for the last couple meetings, where individuals who are given a grant have to volunteer time back into the community in some capacity, in addition to the applied project that they're doing. So that is actually part of our application now, is are you willing to and able to there. The metrics behind this this type of program, and great question, because that is what I deal with my doctorate, right? Looking at the qualitative and the quantitative side of things. If you can quantify it using things like the number of individuals who have continued on to further education is a one that I use as a litmus test for that. And then another one would be, because it's helping with the reframe on education itself, right? But another one that that I see is the position transfers, but that happens over time, over, you know, say a 5-year gap. It's them stepping up into higher leadership roles or taking on other things in our community and really driving it forward using different models on that. As far as the ask itself goes, I actually talked to our board yesterday about it, and I would just love to see the support of the district sending 1 or 2 participants to the program. We've done really well. The way the model looks, we still can apply for grants outside of the districts. The investment of $20,000 over the span of 2 years is more than we could possibly ask for. We've let District of Ukilit know the same thing, and we don't want to ask for more money. So I think we should be okay as long as we stick to some of the grant approaches that we're going to be taking. Then we should be okay with the program to run it. The one challenge that we will have is we are going to plateau, and we're going to run out of people who want to take a leadership program, possibly running out of future leaders, perhaps. I don't know what it's only been 2 years, right? Last year we were great, this year we were good. Going forward, I know that a lot of the businesses have picked it up, right? Ocean Village, Long Beach Lodge submitted again this year. We had the pharmacy, Epic Pharmacy, they've submitted, Common Loaf, right? So the businesses are starting to see the value and are putting more and more people in, so have the districts. So it's something that we're hoping not to need going forward. So there is no ask coming, perhaps, unless I have to ask for you to submit a student, but that should come in May or June, like it did last year.
Yeah, and I think just the open call that you make to the community, and
Perfect.
definitely the district will pick up on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no more money. We're okay. But question for you, to put it back to you, is what types of metrics would you like to see around the program? What do you think? What would be valuable for you, for me to report back next year?
Well, I think we've touched on one, which is that a certain number of hours, given back to the community. And the question, I guess, is how one finds or defines what those projects are. You know, like, I'm aware of initiatives that we've undertaken that we've had to shelve because there isn't anybody to pick up
Manpower.
on or leadership, or, to activate and mobilize maybe some people in the community. The seniors plan, for example, age-friendly community is one of those pieces that we took on as a council undertaking to kind of come up with a plan.
Yeah,
But
feasibility assessment of some sort.
yeah, so, and there may be other things similar.
So
I
just,
know there's a buy local at the chamber, there's different things, so even just an excellent,
yeah, a list of, here's a smorgasbord of choices of things that you could be doing.
Yeah. And
So
how that's
this
applied.
this was brought up as well, because I help with I coordinate the East Coast program as well now, just for this year, as they go through a transition, and we wanted to avoid this is more of a VIU type of thing. We want to avoid telling the participants which projects that they can take on, We can make an offer. For example, there's someone in Ladysmith, they're looking to do there's a person, an elderly gentleman who gives tours, walking tours of Ladysmith. But he's getting older now, so it's time to transfer that knowledge onto some sort of, whether it be the earpieces and things like that as you walk along. But we made the offer, we put it out there, but it's not, if it doesn't get picked up, we don't want to force, because they have to go through that argument. They have to go through the conflict to find it, right? The storming to figure out their project. But I would love to get a list, the same way we did on the East Coast this year, of different projects that we could move forward with. You know? Just speaking to that as well, I'm transitioning out of the program as the coordinator because I think it's important. It was always my plan to launch it and then put someone better. So I am going to be withdrawing, well, it's going to be a transition year happening through the 2015-2016 year. I'll still be a strong part of the program. I'll be on the board and possibly facilitating a few of the days, but it's time to hand this one off. We've got a really good grounding, a really good system in place, and really good connections. So come May, we're going to be calling for proponents to apply for the project.
Thank you very much. Any final questions?
Can you just give me some example of the projects?
Sure. Last year on our coast, we had the volunteer fair that was there. We also had the calendar through the CBT, the regional level calendar that we had. And then this year, for example, we also have we have a birthing guide that's being created for West Coast families because there's some pretty big issues around that have been identified by the Community Resource Center. And then another example of this year is an idea of an outdoor youth retreat to build their leaders. And another one is a regional award for youth who have shown, whether it be individual leadership or teamwork, so an award acknowledgement system on the coast for that as well. So that's the ones that are coming down right now, and they're going through their stages of launching that information. And yeah.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ricardo. Really appreciate your time and giving us that.
Thanks for supporting us.
And yeah, it's actually it's really quite remarkable to see a situation where a municipality makes an investment like this for a couple of years, and the program really launches, takes off, and now you are not going to.
You're good. Yeah, we don't need to beg you anymore. It's, except for participants, because we always need
spread your model.
more leaders.
Thank you.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. And if there's ever any questions around some of the locations that can be used elsewhere, I'm always here for. I don't go anywhere.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. I like it.
Okay,
Applause.
moving on. No,
All right,
no
all right.
applause. But we are very thankful. So under correspondence for information, we have a letter from Rupert Yakelashek from Victoria regarding the Blue Dot movement. What would you like to do?
I'd like to refer this to staff to determine what are the actual legal implications implications if we were to sign on with something like this.
I would second that.
So
And
Councillor
discussion.
McMaster has moved to refer this to staff to report back on the implications of the correspondence or the declaration there ensued, and Councillor Barton has seconded. Did you want to do that?
I mean, notionally, I kind of like it, but I'm just not sure how it might bite us down the road if we end up agreeing on something on this. And I just don't know the consequences.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I had a similar read on it. I really supported the principle. I think it's fitting. We're in a biosphere reserve, and I think part of our identity and branding, if you will, could be kind of reinforced with such a declaration, which I think is a good thing. There were a couple of places where I wondered what that would saddle the community to. And one of them was the full cost accounting, and I think we just chatted about that a bit before the meeting. But there was another piece that was similar in the specific of the declaration. I had my notebook and then I went to look for it and didn't have it, so I don't think it matters so much because staff putting their eyes. The question I have though is that there's a cost if we want to have it looked at by our lawyer, and if we can get a sense from the CAO about what that might be, so that that's understood, that that we would be probably, it would probably have to be have some legal eyes on it, correct?
Yes, I think it would. The granting of rights is typically done by national governments, constitutionally. And so I'm not really sure what this means, and agree with the comments that have been made. That I think the objectives that are kind of woven into this are laudable, but want to understand what it would mean. I share with Mayor Osborne a report that the city planner in Esquimalt had done around this, and I'll find out the extent to which he has legal advice and may be prepared to share it, but pretty significant concerns about something that would require an amendment to the Canadian Constitution. I don't, it's been some decades since that's happened. So I can get back to council. I may be able to find out what other municipalities have done and find out what advice they've had. Share the concern about full cost accounting also. The wording is essentially everything you do, we want full cost accounting. So, before we go buy a 6-pack of pencils, do we need full cost accounting? And what does that mean? And, I think we'd end up having to build a second municipal hall and fill this building with accountants to do that. And I would love that.
Well, I just want to say that again, I think the intention around changing the Constitution is the intention of this, and that I support that. We need certain recognition of rights, and this is a kind of a ground up support of that, but we have a responsibility to the municipality as well, and so that's where it's going from my point of view.
Yeah, and there certainly are ways that we can bolster, what we're prepared to do for the environment. My view is we're most effective when we stay within what our responsibility is, and maybe there are things that we can do when we next review our official community plan that would have meaningful local impact, rather than Tofino trying to encourage the federal government to open up the Constitution for review. I mean, how effective are we going to be doing that, to be blunt?
I don't like calling myself a politician, but in this case, I call myself a politician and say that's what we're doing, or presumably if we move this forward.
Thank you. Councilor Blanchard.
I think, sorry, I really appreciate that somebody of 10, had the wherewithal to write us a letter that cares enough. So I think it absolutely deserves a full response. And I guess just to echo some of the comments around the table, I had the same kinds of questions when I read this, but I think and I went on the website and I looked at what Blue Dot is trying to do, and it's all good. It all looks good on the surface, but here's the rub for me. When I read these sentences, therefore be it resolved that, and then all people have the right to drink. Yes, we just heard that from Ricardo, to drink clean water, to consume safe food. I guess I feel we just talked about strategic priorities, a few days ago, and notionally my feeling is that I would like to further prosper this idea of stewardship rather than this sense of entitlement. Like the idea is, yes, we have a right to breathe clean air, but what are you going to do? Are you going to do? What are we going to do? And it rubs me the wrong way, to be quite honest. The wording of that. I prefer to think of ourselves as stewards of this beautiful space and environment. And I think our mission statement at the District of Tofino, we say that. And I think we're doing, I'm not saying we're doing great, we're doing pretty good. And I think it's pretty top of mind in our community, and it is captured in our mission statement. So I hear especially what our CAO is saying, and I have those concerns, but it's more the notion that I find, that's why I don't think I can, exactly what Councillor McMaster said, we need to refer this to staff, but notionally, that the wording of that kind of puts me it makes me feel awkward.
Thank you. Councillor Belanger?
I was delighted to see this on the agenda because it's been in my awareness beforehand, and I'm new enough on council that I don't have a feel for what our feeling is or our proclivity is for making kind of grand pronouncements that we don't have a direct legal jurisdiction over. My feeling is that the senior government is failing us in many ways, and that it is our duty really to bring the voice of the people of Tofino to the senior government by making pronouncements such as this. That said, I was a bit gobsmacked to read the suggested resolution, which I thought would be more of a statement of principle, and really turned out to be quite a sweeping kind of revamp of the village's accounting systems and other things. So I don't think we need to take this whole suggested resolution to heart, but I would like to see us, and all of the complications that involves, and staff time in particular, but I would like to see us make the grand statement of principle, and at least, and maybe improve our accounting in greener ways. But that's more of a gradual, incremental process, I think, that we can pursue over the next 4 years if we keep it uppermost in mind, and I for one will be. But I would like to see us make the grand statement and communicate that to our provincial and federal governments, that this is the way the people of Tofino feel, and we would like to see some action on that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Everybody's clear on the motion? We'll call the question, and all those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Into correspondence requiring action. We have.
Sorry, can I say something? Sorry, the motion isn't this motion, the motion is your motion.
Correct.
I'm sorry. So
That's why I asked, is everyone clear on the motion?
sorry,
And
I have
never hesitate to ask for clarification.
I'm sorry, just for staff's sake, that I do support the motion.
Okay,
but
sorry. It's okay, the motion is carried, and I think that was your intention.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on, we have correspondence from Neil Belanger, the Executive Director of the BC Aboriginal Network on Disability Society, regarding the BC Without Barriers campaign. The letter specifically does request a donation of $200, and then there's a number of other parts to possible community support. So I'll ask for your direction. Is that a hand?
Well, yeah, I just kind of a little puzzled. Like, I'd like to support it. We certainly have the evidence of some people who have struggled with disabilities in our own community, especially given how awkward it is, given our infrastructure and so forth. So I'd like to support it, but at least a request for funds. But we have a process for grants, and I don't know if we should just refer that to the granting process so it's all in the same envelope and not. Are we past the deadline for that?
So this year, under council grants, we have a new process with the participatory budgeting. There's nothing that prevents us from referring it to this process, because that's the decision that we've made for how to disperse council grants this year. And at your pleasure, you could make a motion if you wish, or we could hear from others first. Okay. Anybody else? Councilor Dick?
I would move to receive for information.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, so it's been moved and received. Moved and seconded. seconded to receive for information. Councillor Fick, did you want to lead off on that?
Well, I think it's a worthy cause. I just don't feel it's pertinent to our jurisdiction, and that's just. I just think that's it. I don't think it's necessarily within. I agree that the amount is small, but I just don't think it's within our jurisdiction. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else?
I just think there's lots of worthy causes, and I don't like the fact we're put in a position to decide which is more worthy than another. And I think we just open a can of worms for the deluge of us. So.
Thank you. Okay, I'll call the question. And all those in favor? Thank you. The motion is carried. Anything else you wish to do with this correspondence? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you very much. All right, so we have a letter from Betty Wilson regarding dog feces collection bags and garbage containers, and her letter has a specific request for garbage containers at particular locations too, I believe. And Councillor Fick had her hand up. Councillor Fick, go ahead.
Yeah, well, this is coming an item. I would like to thank her for her letter, and I would like to put the 2 containers in the places that she suggests. That's my suggestion.
Okay, a suggestion. Councillor McMaster?
Well, I would like to, thank her for a letter and for also exhibiting some civic pride in the area by going above and beyond. And I would also, as a dog owner, I was glad to see that we put more bag dispensers up. However, as a responsible dog owner who takes his bags out there, I would prefer to see garbage cans to put dog poop in rather than poop dispensers. So I fully agree that if you can have a poop bag dispenser, there should be some sort of garbage can attached to it. There's that sort of thing I think you've seen in a lot of municipalities, where there's a bag dispenser and then it has a little garbage can at the bottom. And I think there should be a garbage can at the bottom of every bag dispenser. And I don't think it has to be the big bear-proof. You just need a little canister that fits to the pole.
Thank you.
So I would say not just at the 2 entrances, wherever we have a bag dispenser, there should be some sort of garbage receptacle.
So as we talk about this, I'd like to also us to think about the implications of the cost of garbage bags, the cost of garbage, the cost of collection, and everything, just so we have a fulsome discussion. As well, I'd just like to remind Council that we have received 1 letter from 1 person, and so if we act on this with a decision today, we are, in my opinion, perhaps doing what we just avoided in the last item, which is not reacting to a single request. So I'll just say my bit, but did you have your hand up, Bob?
Yeah, just if I may, I had understood that when we had a presentation, I want to say a half year ago, but it's probably longer, from the Bear Smart Bearware folks, and I had understood that it was council's desire to start replacing existing garbage cans with bear-proof cans. So we're in that process now. The cost of those bear-proof containers is around $2,000 each installed. And I appreciate the comments that Councillor McMaster just made, but want council to consider that we have no guarantee that someone will put their picnic garbage into one of those little things, and the challenge that we're trying to mitigate right now with replacing other containers will end up having the same challenge in other locations, possibly in the future. So my preference would be, if we're going to start putting garbage cans out, that we continue to have the bear-proof ones, or that we abandon the bear-proof thing altogether and have a mix of them.
Good thoughts. Councillor Blanchett.
Seems like this initiative ties into a number of staff processes that are already ongoing. The review of the dog bylaw, the installation of, as the CAO just said, bear-proof containers, and the installation of bag dispensers. So I would think that we might want to refer this to staff to fold into their larger plan so that it does make sense in the larger plan.
Is there a motion on the table?
There's no motion.
Yeah. Well, I would make a motion to refer to staff, but I'm just not sure if we want to. It's probably better to go there in terms of information, in terms of planning for garbage, but it also might be something that would come up in the budget process too, the whole subject of garbage cans or those kinds of things. So what I'm just not sure is if I want to refer to budget process or to staff as a general, like, gather information and.
I think it would be appropriate to refer to staff, and it can come back to us in the budget process, but you don't have to, you don't have to narrow it to that.
Okay, so I'll just move to refer the letter to staff.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? I think there's nothing in this that prevents us also from acknowledging the letter, and as you said, the same pride that somebody takes in helping to pick up after perhaps those that are. Yeah, so we'll get that afterwards. Okay, any discussion on the motion? Everyone's clear? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion's carried. Councillor McMaster?
Okay, I'll make a second motion that we thank Miss Wilson for a letter and for exhibiting some civic pride in keeping the beaches clean.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. Any final discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Motion's carried. All right. Correspondence from Peter Ross. He is the director of the Ocean Pollution Research Program from the Vancouver Aquarium, and he is requesting support for a new coastwide partnership in a pollution monitoring program. I did have a telephone call with him yesterday, so I'll tell you about my conversation with him. We discussed his letter and the specific ask, and so I just wish to clarify that his request is for up to 3 things, any of these things, and they can be independent. First is simply consent to partner with the Vancouver Aquarium and allow them to work with our staff or students who live or work in the community where possible, but there was no expectation that staff time had to come attached to that. We clarified it. The second is he's requesting that we provide a letter of support for the program that he can use or they can use to apply to other funding partners like the Clackaby's River Trust and Port Metro Vancouver. And third, he asked for consideration of the financial support of a single monitoring station out here in Tofino at a cost of $9,500. He explained a little bit more to me about the depth and breadth of the program and the wide variety of different pollutants that the program hopes to monitor. And he expressed his personal opinion that in the absence of federal monitoring anymore, that basically citizens are left with no choice but to consider supporting programs like these if we wish to have the kinds of environmental pollutant background data that could help us in the future. The one that he featured specifically was up to 150 different hydrocarbon contaminants that they will monitor in seawater, which he felt was important to monitor because it establishes a baseline in the future event of some kind of fuel or oil spill. So he is working with a number of different communities across the coast. He has the support of Port Metro Vancouver and Metro Vancouver, which is a pretty big one, and is reaching out to communities like us. Councillor Blanchett?
I'm very much in favor of this. I want to point out that it's a classic example of downloading from the federal to the municipal government. This is something that the federal government has been and definitely should still be doing. I'm not in appreciation of that, but I do find it fits in with very well with Tofino's reputation and with our brand, much as I dislike that word. And it also fits in with, I mean, we're going to be embarking on a liquid waste management process, and this might well give us some very useful data as to how well that is working. that fits in well. Our lovely federal government is changing the aquaculture chemical dumping regulations to allow them to kind of dump pesticides and such at will with very little reporting. So I think we might want to have such a program as the Vancouver Aquariums in place just to help us keep track of that. There are, the Friends of Clayoquot Sound have done some work. There are dioxin concerns apparently in Port Alberni Harbor from a long time ago, the mill activity there. And if they did start dredging, for example, for a coal port, there are some concerns that those dioxins would travel out as far as us. So we would want to be aware of some baseline data in order to know if that's a problem. There's the incoming radiation stream from Fukushima as well. So I'm very much in favor of this. I think it really fits well with what we want Tofino to be, an environmentally aware stewards of our local environment. One question I have is this $9,500 cost. Is that a one-time cost or is that a yearly cost?
I would assume it's an annual cost, but the request is just for 1 year. But that's unclear to me. Councillor Thick?
I didn't get the answer to this but maybe I've missed it, but how and why were we chosen? And there doesn't seem to be a map. They say 5 sites on the west coast of Vancouver Island. Where are the others and how and why were we chosen?
I can't answer that. I know that I think we were chosen because in part they are looking for a location out on the west coast of Vancouver Island, and they had some contact with the Rainforest Education Society and recently came out and gave a public talk about it, and there is an ongoing relationship with the District of Tofino and the Vancouver Aquarium on a few other files from the past, like beach cleanups and things, so it may have come from that, but I don't know for certain.
Yeah, because I'm curious because Port Metro Vancouver is supporting it, but in one part in the report it says that there are 5 sites on the west coast of Vancouver Island, but it doesn't name, like on one of the maps on page 22, it shows all these triangles, but there's no other sites named.
They're just putting the program together, so I don't think they've confirmed many of their sites. They're looking for communities to work with.
I think it's a good example of local research and or research that's going to be undertaken that could certainly be a benefit for us, and for that reason I'm in agreement, but I would support the first 2, the consent to partner and the letter of support, but I would, without further information or a personal delegation, I couldn't support the ask for $9,500 at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McMaster?
Yeah, I agree with that. I struggle with the using $9,500 at the moment. I want more information, and maybe if we're the only place on the west coast, maybe we should be looking, if we're going to do this, we should be having all the other communities contribute to the funding.
There would be up to 5 on the west coast of Vancouver.
We don't know where.
No. Thank you. Councillor Burt?
Thank you. Yeah, I think doing the research is important for a number of reasons. Our oyster growing industry, our whale watch industry, our fishing industry, there are things that we need to know just generally for the health of the environment and our residents, our surf community, all that. Our waters are really important. I'm troubled by a couple of things. One is the research is being done through Strawberry Island research. Water quality testing for certain pathogens for the oyster shellfish growing industry. Possibly you would likely know more about some of the details of that than I, but at any rate, I think perhaps what they really need is to identify some leadership, for example, that might take on coordinating with certain bodies to put together a package that would support this, that their interests are well well served by having this research. And also identifying what research is already out there. Of course, the agriculture industry already says that they are monitoring, so certainly there'll be some data there from them as well, as incomplete as it may be in terms of this kind of program. So I like to support the first couple of requests and support the project in principle, but recommend that there may be some resources to activate you know, getting those funds underway and perhaps further conversation about what those might be, or an offer to invite, you know, to contact you, myself. But anyway, one second. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay.
Or something else.
Thank you. And thanks for the point about the other monitoring programs. This one, as I understand, is far more in-depth and broad in terms of the spectrum of contaminants that it would monitor than any local organization is capable of. I'm one of them right now, but you remember.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when Bob Hanson put together the wildlife predator document, working for BC Parks, needed some money. People came around, called businesses, got $500 subscriptions. They were oversubscribed to support the project, which was a kind of benchmark leader in that kind of area of education. So, you know, I recommend that something similar, that there are people in such who would come forward to do the sponsorship.
Okay. Well, my recommendation would be that you consider a motion regarding which components or what part of the requests that they have. I would be more than happy to take the context of that conversation and pass it back personally to Dr. Ross, and I don't think we need a motion to that effect. But
well, I'll make a motion to provide a letter of support for PollutionWatch, and I think that's all it has to say. I mean, it could say more, but
thank you. So you're specifically speaking to the second
number
request.
2
Okay.
request.
All right. Is there a seconder? Thank you. Seconder. All right. Any discussion on that? All right.
I wonder why we would not consent to partner with them.
I just think that's worth more discussion, so I'm getting the easy one off the table.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, any final discussion on that? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. If you wish, I can just continue a conversation with Dr. Ross and express some of what was just stated, and we can take it from there. Or, if at your pleasure, you can put another motion forward. Seeing no hands, we will move on then. Okay, thank you, everybody. All right, our first report on the agenda today is application for permanent change to food primary liquor license. Jane, did you wish to speak to this? Or?
I hope everyone's had a chance to read this. This report outlines local government's role in the liquor licensing and amendment process. We have an option either to undertake the public consultation ourselves, or we also have the ability to pass a resolution that lets the Liquor Control and Licensing Board, who is the approving body, undertake the process themselves. The applicant is Jamie Rainforest Inn, their restaurant and lounge. It's a food primary license. They have held the license since December 2013. In September 2014, they put in a request to offer, it's called patron participation, so it was live music and dancing. That was a permanent change, and now they're looking to extend their hours of service beyond midnight, so it's an hour every single day of the week. So it's council's pleasure whether they would like us to do the public consultation or have the Liquor Control and Licensing Board do it.
Thank you. Okay.
I'll move that staff do the public consultation. presentation.
So you,
So
first, okay, go ahead.
I'm moving the first part of the recommendation.
So you are moving that the staff report be received and that
Staff
staff
be
be authorized.
authorised to gather the views of residents potentially impacted by the application for the purpose of providing the liquor control and licensing branch the council resolution on whether the application should be approved.
Thank you, Councillor McMaster. Seconder? Councillor Bart, thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Bart and then Blanchette.
Yeah, thank you. Just to staff, I know that if the liquor licensing branch does the consultation, it's to immediate neighbors. Is the district undertaking this restricted in the same way?
It's restricted by guidelines put up by the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch. As well, we've adopted a bylaw, and that's pretty consistent. It's within a 60-meter radius that we consult.
Yeah, I feel that it's our responsibility to do our due diligence in this, and so that's my preference.
Thank you. Councillor Blanchette?
I'm wondering a couple of things. Have there been any or many bylaw complaints with around the existing liquor regulations? You know that?
Complaints regarding this particular piece of property?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of, but part of the consultation process that I'll start to do is we will fan out to different organizations, including our own. We'll check to see, the zoning. We'll check to see business license. Contact the RCMP, ask them for comments, and ask by law enforcement for comment. I'm not aware of anything myself.
So that begs the question then, why would we load our own staff up to do this work if the liquor board would do pretty much exactly the same process without burdening our staff?
Because if we left it to the Liquor Control and Licensing Board, if I understand correctly, they would make the decision. We wouldn't have an opportunity to provide any further direction.
Well, we would only, in both cases, what you look at is set by legislation. So we look at very specific things that are outlined, and the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch does exactly the same thing. It's just who's going to collect the views. We collect the views, or the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch collects the views. We collect the views by running ads in the newspaper, by fanning out, getting comments from the RCMP, basically internal departments in the District of Tofino, and then we send letters directly to people that are within a 60-meter radius. Liquor Control and Licensing Branch puts up signs, directs the proponent to puts up signs on the property, and then they collect the comments themselves. When they did the patron participation, council chose to have the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch do it, and so I did read the report back in the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch, and there was one person that sent a letter. And so the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch decided, based on that they approved it.
Sorry, in counter to, or to respond to your question, I do believe that residents like to know and think that council have some eyes on things that are going on in the community that may impact them. And I know I can attest that noise is a big impact, and for us to just defer that responsibility to another body to look at without any opportunity for it to come back to council, maybe with some comment from council, would be irresponsible. If we pass it to them, we have no opportunity for phrasing or how we send that info back to them. Would be my understanding.
That is correct. So the questions that are asked and how it's collected is essentially the same, but in one case we're doing it ourselves directly.
Okay, Councillor Pitt?
So if we were to pass this motion and we walk down this road, are we then saying that we no longer have, like in other words, the views of the surrounding residents take precedence over a council decision? Is that what we're saying by allowing that process to take place?
In all cases, the decision-making body is the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch, and part of their statutory requirements are to collect the views of subject property, or the views of residents and businesses that are close to the subject property. Local governments have an opportunity to do that themselves and then make comment to the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch, or we have the opportunity to opt out of doing that for this particular application, and then the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch then does it themselves.
And council does not have an opportunity
Correct.
to comment
Correct.
on the input that's been received or
Correct.
the application.
Correct.
So this is the only method, if council wished to see what the public feedback or the neighbor feedback was and make comment if it wished, this would be the only way to do it. Councillor Blanchette's just raising the concern about staff time on it.
I don't know if you recall, we did this with the shelter
We
restaurant.
did, I
Yeah.
do remember that. I think most
Yes.
members of council, but Councillor Blanchette wasn't here at that time.
Oh, I was,
Did-
but I was.
You were over there, okay. So that is the way we chose to do the consultation ourselves with the shelter application. And as Jane explained, with the change in the endorsement for the live
Patron
entertainment.
participation,
Patron
yeah.
participation, thank you, we chose not to do the consultation ourselves.
So
Councillor
just to continue, I share the concerns of Councillor Blanchette, and I really think that in light of our decision with regard to shelter, I feel that if we were to say yes to this in any,
that we would say yes to doing the consultation ourselves?
yeah, not only do we add another burden of work to staff, but do we also, this is my question, is do we undermine the decision that we made with regard to shelter and their similar application? I personally feel hesitant.
To have staff do the consultation?
I do, and I feel hesitant to, even to do what is being requested.
Okay. To be clear, this is entirely separate from the shelter application.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Burt?
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure if Councillor Fick is saying that she'd rather have it just handed over to the liquor board and we stay out of it? Is that
Well,
without comment?
Sorry, I'm just going to go back to one part.
Did you hear the question?
Yeah, it says somewhere in the report what the local government's input is. That's sort of what I was trying to read. So perhaps.
So to be clear, if our staff undertake the consultation, we will see the neighbors' comments, have an opportunity to add our own comment and submit the package back to the licensing board. If they do the consultation, then they will handle the process, receive the feedback, and make the decision.
As part of that consultation process, our bylaw requires that we also invite people to come to the meeting so they can make written submissions, or they can come to the meeting where council will be considering the information package and make verbal comments.
Right, as we did with the shelter application, because we chose the same method.
Yeah, I'm just referring to the
So-
shelter just for the process.
Yeah, which most of us remember. So the motion on the floor is to direct staff to undertake the consultation. Is there any final discussion on that?
I just want to say, I think this is the only way we get some public impact. My dealings with the liquor licensing board, and don't quote me on this, is they'll take the easy way out. They put up a few signs and maybe a newspaper advertisement and hope nothing comes in, and then they'll just rubber stamp it. So.
Okay, we're clear? Okay, I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor of the motion? Thank you, the motion is carried. Okay, moving on, we have a special event permit application, similar to ones we have seen before for the 2015 Whale Festival Parade and opening ceremony. So you see in the report the plan for the parade, the route for the parade, and the use of the village green for the opening ceremony and family barbecue on Saturday, March 14th. Councillor Thick.
Yes, I would move the recommendation.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded to authorize staff to issue the special event permit and for both the Whale Festival Parade and the barbecue on Village Green. Any comment?
I would say that we make a friendly amendment that the weather should be good on that day.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, Councillor Thick?
Yeah, and I do really appreciate this added, I can't remember, they're going to do something afterwards. Was it a barbecue or something?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
And I think that is really great, that there's just a little bit of food and there's a little bit of ceremony, there's a little bit of friendly. I think this is a fabulous addition.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion's carried. The last item of business are the Community Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting minutes from January 20th, 2015.
I'll move adoption with one change.
Okay,
I wasn't present on January 20th.
all right. So noted. Councillor Thick?
And neither was Adrian Mason.
I don't know, I wasn't there, so.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so that
January
particular,
20th.
okay, that was before. Okay.
All right,
Right.
so
Thank
correction
you.
noted.
Sorry.
Councillor McMaster moves receipt. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Blanchette. All right, all in favor? Thank you, motion carried. Okay, any questions or comment from our audience? Andrew, you're all good? Great, okay, can I please have somebody read the resolution to move the calendar? Councillor Blanchette wants to give this a shot. Go for it.
Al is not here. In the
Pardon me?
absence of Councillor Anderson, I move that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to sections 90.1.A, C, E, and G of the Community Charter to discuss matters related to personal information about an individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent, employee relations, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, litigation, or potential litigation affecting the municipality.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchette. Seconded by Councillor Thick. All in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. Thank you.